Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this edition of the NFL podcast. We're going to talk about five things, kind of the LA Rams, what I saw in them last week, and we're going to mention the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we're also going to mention the Ravens. So we're going to talk about kind of what I saw from those three teams last week, and big story coming out from a couple days ago is Eli Manning is going to be benched. So will not play. That snaps his streak of 200-plus games played. And Ben McAdoo, who saw reports from this morning, could be fired after the game or tomorrow morning. So here we go of those. So what I think about the Rams is this week they're going to play the Cardinals. They're going to play the Cardinals later today. And last week I've seen bits and pieces of the Rams. I've seen them. But it wasn't until yesterday I saw a full game, and this Rams team is really good. They're 8-3. It's just amazing. I think Sean McVay might be the best young coach in the NFL. And think about this question. Obviously, there's Bill Belichick, 65 years old. You look at all the other coaches. If you could have any coach in the league 5 years from now, this is a small sample size, but I take McVay, and is he going to coach like this his whole career? Seems like an offensive genius at age 31. That early in his career, Goff is in his second year in the league, early in the third year in the league. So it seems like they have a lot of time together, really. And this is just the beginning for the Rams. This could be scary. The Rams could be scary good next year. And look, it's early, but the way they played against the Saints last week seemed like their offense was moving down the field. Seemed like they ran some interesting formations. Some of them worked, some of them didn't. But just Sean McVay seems like a very, very creative play caller. Bringing fun to the Rams, bringing good life. The guys want to have a young, energetic coach, and that seems like what McVay is. And it seems like he's really helping Goff last week. I heard reports that he was calling audibles before. Well, they're running very fast offense, and he was calling audibles, and just seemed like most of the play calls they did worked, and again, very creative. And when you're creative, it doesn't always work, but I like McVay's creativity, and it would be interesting to see the Rams more. I think next year they'll be on national television a lot more. But, yep, and listen, the Rams are now 8-3. They're heavy favorites to win the West. They should win today. They should beat the Cardinals in with the Seahawks playing the Eagles. That would put them 2 full games over. And unfortunately, earlier, I think it was about week 6, they lost to the Seahawks. So the Rams are clearly the best team in the West. It would be very interesting to see how far they could go. I really like McVay. I think he will definitely get some Coach of the Year votes. In fact, maybe he should be Coach of the Year. Did about as well as any rookie head coach you could ask for. Again, I thought the Rams would be definitely better on offense. Definitely, they were about as bad as you could be last year. I thought they'd make strides and they'd be an okay team, win 7-8 games, but not the typical Rams. This is showing signs of improvement. I did not think they're a playoff team this year, but they made it to the playoff, or are very likely a playoff team unless they fall apart. And other things I saw from that game, I did not think the Saints ran enough. They kind of went away to the passing game, and that Rams defense is very good as well. One of the better defenses in the league, and the Rams are just a complete team. But listen, when Kamara had that 75-yard run, I was thinking, okay, the Saints are really running. This is what the Saints do. This could be a great shootout, and there was defense at times and offense. And looking at the current standings, the Saints will play the Panthers later on today on Fox, the game of the week. So that will be interesting to see how they do against Cam Newton, the Panthers defense, obviously, which is much better than last year. Maybe not quite as good as it was 2 years ago, but that'll be very interesting to see what happens in. And now we're going to turn over to the Steelers. So, listen, going to that game, I thought, wow, the Steelers could win 45-10. This could be a blowout. This could be one of those games where it's such a blowout that you decide, you know what, I don't need to watch the second half. I've seen all I need to see. I don't need to watch the fourth quarter. I thought it would be a game where, okay, this is a game where I can sign off on early and just see a lot of whether it's blowout time or garbage time or whatever, just not competitive football. But I was wrong. Brett Hundley, who, again, he was still filling in for Aaron Rodgers, came in and played very well. The best game of his career through 3 touchdown passes. I think 4, actually. And look, the Packers played right with them, in fact. They had a chance to really take over the game when they had an interception. I think they're up by 7, but the Steelers' defense in the first half, the Packers really played with them, really moving the ball well. The Steelers outplayed them the second half. And yes, they only won by 3, but they outplayed them. They moved the ball better. Their defense was better. And the Steelers were clearly the better team. And it was the play of Antonio Brown that led them to this win. I mean, Brown was just spectacular, especially the last drive. They knew what they're doing. And look, the Steelers, they are 9-2. Likely be 10-2 playing the Bengals tomorrow night, who were 3-6, won their last 2 games. But still, the Bengals are an inconsistent team. They're nowhere near as good as what they were 2 or 3 years ago. The rivalry, I feel like, is not the same as what it was. This will not be as competitive. I think the Steelers will still win, and they should win tomorrow night, considering that. But listen, the big game for the Steelers is going to be Week 15 against the Patriots. Very likely, both of them, I feel like, will be 11-2, and the winner of that game will obviously host the one, well, in the tiebreaker, so they'll go a game up, and even if they're tied, it won't matter. We'll host the AFC Championship game, while the loser will have to be on the road and have to play against them. So whether we'll be in Foxborough this year or whether the AFC Championship game is in Pittsburgh, that's what I think. Winner of that game will have a rematch in the AFC Championship game. Of course, nothing is guaranteed, but that's what I feel like it's going to be. Look, the Steelers, Ben Roethlisberger has played better. I mean, that game where he threw 5 interceptions against Jacksonville, that you started to question whether he had anything. I think Ben Roethlisberger can still play. I don't know how many more years he can play. And this is probably the best shot the Steelers have at winning a Super Bowl in many, many years. I mean, they had a transition period, and it seems like they're coming back full circle. Their defense is once again one of the better defenses in the league. And when you look at this team, they look like a very complete team. They look like a Super Bowl contender. But they have to play against the Patriots, who have won 7 straight. And should beat the Bills today. So, you look back, the third game, the Baltimore Ravens. So the Ravens, they beat the Texans. And it was not the prettiest of games at all. The Texans went ahead in the 7-0. The Ravens had a lot of trouble moving the ball for most of the game. They did do some nice runs. I mean, Alex Collins, probably their best playmaker this year on offense. Kind of gave them some energy. The running game started to come back for them, but they could not get anything explosive. Everything seemed short passes where they were either not getting very far or they had slow drives, had lack of explosiveness, and I was starting to wonder, wow, this Ravens team really isn't good on offense, and we knew that all year. Joe Flacco is one of the worst quarterbacks in the league this year. Their running is not good at all. They don't really have a solid receiver. Their defense is great. If you saw Terrell Suggs, he played like he would have 5-10 years ago. He can still play, and he showed that night. I think he had multiple sacks, forced some turnovers. The Ravens forced a lot of turnovers, and that defense is great. It really is. And can they beat the Steelers? Probably not. They're not good enough to beat the Steelers. They'll play next week. I believe that is a game that the Steelers will win, but maybe the Ravens' defense can really balance it out. But looking at it, the Ravens are definitely a playoff caliber team now. Can their defense pull off an upset and maybe just completely shut an offense down in the first round? I think they can. Now, whether they have to play the Patriots or the Steelers in the second round, which seems very likely. And look, the playoffs are far from decided. We have a long ways to go. The really only teams that are locked for the playoffs, I'd say, are the Patriots and the Eagles. Steelers, I'd say so, but in terms of wild card in the AFC, which is much weaker than the NFC this year, things are far from certain. Look, the Ravens have to win today against the Lions, and that's really what they need to do. And if they can get in the playoffs, they can get through in the first round. But that's the question. How far can they go since their offense is nowhere near up to the task of what the Steelers would be, what the Patriots are, of what even the San Diego Chargers have shown, which they're making a comeback and could very well win the division. So if they get like the Chiefs, that could be a defensive battle, and maybe they can win a game like that. Say the Chiefs are the 3 seed, or if they're playing a team like the Jaguars, who again are very dependent on defense, have a top-notch defense, great at pass rushing. That is their primary strength, about as good as any team in the league this year. Maybe a team has been in the past few years, or whether they play a team like the Titans, I don't know. But look, the Ravens, if they get into the playoffs, they can easily win the first round game. They can get by with their defense in the first round. The question is, what do they do in the second round? And can they win? Can they dominate a defense like the Patriots or the Steelers? When they played the Patriots last year, obviously their defense is not at the level it is at. The Patriots beat them. On Monday Night Football, they put up 30-plus points against them. And then last year, they nearly had the Steelers. And the Steelers beat them in week 4 this year. And playing the Steelers again, Steelers are definitely favored. But look, the thing with the Ravens is their defense is scary good. Their defense can win one playoff game. The question is, can it win 2 or 3? Is it a defense or do they just is this a defense that can carry them to the Super Bowl? Look, they've had 3 shutouts this year. But their shutouts were against the Bengals, who really early on just could not move the ball at all. It was against the Dolphins, which they don't really have much of a quarterback, really. I mean, Jay Cutler has not been good this year. They've had a lot of trouble moving the ball. And against Brett Hundley, who coincidentally a week before he put on that show in Pittsburgh in Green Bay, they shut out the Packers. So, look, this defense is great. Great. Maybe the best in the NFL. But can it shut out offense like the Steelers or the Patriots? Probably not. I mean, we don't know, but that's why they play the game. So we'll see. And look, the Ravens have a lot of work to do before they can get into the playoffs. They definitely have to win some games down the stretch. No question about that. So, yes, they do look like a playoff team to me. Defensively, they look like a great playoff team. Offensively, a lot of work to do. And look, we're 3/4 of the way there. And I don't think their offense is going to be any better than it was a week ago or 2 weeks ago. That's just the way it is. So that could be something to look at in the offseason. So anyways, looking at the division, just want to go through quickly. In the AFC South, we're going to go East, North, Southwest. AFC East, Patriots, it's going to be them. It's a done deal. I mean, look, they have really, if you thought of the first quarter of the season, you might have thought, is there anybody, or is this the year the Patriots just are not as dominant? They've won 7 in a row. They're now 9-2. Their defense, if you thought, that's a huge problem for them. It looked like a huge problem in week 1 and in week 3 and 4. Not a problem anymore. It's one of the better defenses in the NFL in that stretch. And look, despite the injuries, Dante Hightower's out for the year. So when you look at that, you lost clearly one of your best defensive playmakers, probably your best defensive player. You don't have a premier pass rusher, not even close. Pass rushing is one of their major weaknesses, so you know what? They just do the Patricia and Belichick are working with the defense and just putting in the right guys, seem to be doing the right things on defense, and it really seems to be working. I'd say their secondary is quite good. So, but listen, if I had to pick any team to win the Super Bowl, any team, most trustworthy team of all the leagues in the entire NFL, it's the Patriots still. That's who I'd bet the most money on. That's who I feel the most confident in winning the Super Bowl. Is the Patriots. East, the Jets have fallen apart. They're not going to make it to the playoffs. They put together a nice run and kind of worst of both worlds, yes. Well, it may have been nice to see them surprisingly good and competitive. The fact is they're not a playoff team, so they kind of had in some ways you could say disappointing. Many people thought they might win one, if not any games. And looking at that, okay. The Bills, look, they're still competitive. Their defense seems to be very good. Sean McDermott seems like a very good first-year coach. And they are still in it. They're still competitive. And look, in the AFC, they can be a playoff team. can, and they are good enough to win one game. AFC's North. Steelers heavy favorites. Again, they're great on both sides of the ball. Once again, they've gotten back that Steeler defense mentality. They are the second best team in the AFC. Look, we talked about a lot earlier in the show. When they play the Patriots in Week 15, that will decide who's possibly the best team in the NFL, and certainly the AFC. So we got that game to look forward to. We might call it AFC Championship preview or something. That's really what we could call it. And you look down south, the Titans, look, Mariota's having a really down year. The Titans are better than they were last year, yes and no, but they're hanging in a weak division since you have the Colts, who clearly without Andrew Luck have no chance to compete. And the Texans, after Deshaun Watson got hurt, they cannot move the ball offensively. They are not a very good team. So it's between the Jaguars and Titans. Whoever wins that division will probably be the 3 seed. Whoever loses will probably be a wild card team. So that could be a interesting matchup. Look, the Jaguars, just like the Ravens, it's possible you could play a Ravens-Jaguars game again. And Week 3, the Jaguars just killed the Ravens. It was 44-7, I think, in the playoffs. Maybe the way it is you have just a defensive grind out, just a defensive battle. And looking at that, and finally out west, the Chiefs. Listen, we thought they might be one of the better teams in the NFL. They're 5-0 since now they are 6-5. And listen, Alex Smith seems like he has fallen apart. It seems like their offense, what they were doing, it's just not working. They're not playing offensive efficiency. They're without Eric Berry. That is clearly showing. Now, at this point, if you said right now, we're in the playoffs, I think they'd be glad to be in the playoffs. They will not get a bye like they were last year. They're worse than last year. They may get through. They would be glad to play one playoff game, I think. And we'll see. And maybe they can get better and we can just forget about this. But the way the Chiefs are right now, if they keep playing like this, they're going to fall out of the playoffs. The Chargers could be getting ready to catch them. The Raiders, they're just too down this year. I don't think they're a playoff team at this point. So, looking at the AFC playoff picture, Patriots, Steelers, winner will be the 1 seed. Loser will be the 2 seed. In the South, it looks like the winner will be the 3 seed. Titans, Jaguars. By the way, the Titans own the tiebreaker for beating the Jaguars back in Week 2. So the Titans could very well win the division and get a home playoff game, and the loser will likely play on the road. So looking at the possible matchups, if you had to draw it up right now, the Ravens are the 6th seed. The Jaguars are currently leading. So it'd be Ravens, Jaguars, and then it would be, trying to think, so Ravens, Jaguars, right. Oh, Chiefs, Titans. Yes. So Chiefs, Titans, which could be a very poorly played game, maybe the just not very well played game. And look, the wild card could be very weak this year. So let's just say the Ravens come back and beat the Jaguars. They're going to New England or Pittsburgh. So look, the AFC is very top heavy. It has maybe 2 of the best teams in the league, 2 out of 3 for sure. And then the bottom half is kind of very weak. You just don't know which way it's going to go. You figure one of them is going to play the Steelers, one of them is going to play the Patriots, and we're going to have Patriots, Steelers, and one of them is going to win the conference. That's what it seems like right now. And that's the way it probably will be. There's just no one is even nearly talented enough. Like you have those 2-3 toss-ups. Oh, I can't decide. Look, the 3 seed in the AFC is a lot closer to the 6 seed than it is to the 2 seed. This is not a coin flip like maybe it was Patriot when it was Steelers Chiefs last year. It is really not that close at all. It is actually a big difference. And so, look, it is not at all close. So AFC very top heavy. You have 2 great teams, 3, 4, maybe 5. We're okay. I think we'll get into the playoffs. We'll just win a playoff game. That's fine. And look, that's just the way it seems like. Of course, there could be shockers and upsets, but that's the way it seems. In the NFC. So in the NFC East, we have the Eagles. They're going to run away with it. They won again last week. They beat the Bears. They're now 10-1, playing the Seahawks on Sunday night tonight. So they look to be 11-1. They're the best team in the NFC. That they can do it with running. They have Wentz. Wentz may win the MVP. I think he's the favorite right now. And they have a very good defensive line. Their defense is quite good too. They're a very good team. And they seem like the favorites to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. So you go from there. Now we're going to look back at now we're going to go a little south. We're going to go to the AFC North. So the AFC North. NFC, excuse me. NFC North. So right now, the Vikings are heavy favorites. The Packers, as we all know, are without Aaron Rodgers. They're now 5-6. So they've played their 4-1 when he got hurt. So do the math. They have lost 6 games. They're 1-5 since then. And they beat the Bears. So the Packers, the question is, can they just somehow survive and just win a game or two, get Rodgers back, and maybe they can be a wild card team? Of course, the NFC is so strong. I don't think that could happen this year. There's just maybe not enough talent the Packers have, and they are going nowhere. They may miss the playoffs for the first time since 2008 in the Aaron Rodgers era, so very unfortunate. Again, they look like NFC North favorites. Now they'll be lucky just to get into the playoffs. So, anyways, the Lions, look, they're 6-5 right now. We will see if they can get in. I don't think they can. Probably not. But you never know with Matthew Stafford. It's hard to see the Lions in the playoffs. Vikings, heavy favorites. Their defense is just great. One of the better defenses in the league. Case Keenum who I thought was not a very good backup. Now, he's clearly the starting quarterback for this team. He has played the best football he ever has in his career. Teddy Bridgewater is healthy. He is healthy. But the question is he going to play? I don't think so. It depends if Keenum starts to fall apart, then maybe. This team is definitely a Super Bowl caliber team. Their defense can get them there. It seems like they have enough offense to get them through. Heavy favorites to win the North. In the South, this is complicated. So it's going to be... So Panthers-Saints today, obviously a very big game. And looking at that, yes, the Saints beat the Panthers back in week 3. And the Saints are currently 8-3. The Panthers are 8-3 as well. They kind of had again, I talked about the Saints earlier. They did not run the ball as much as they have in the past, and their offense seemed to struggle to move the ball. But playing against the Panthers, their defense really could get to Camelot. They really can shut them down. I think the Saints can definitely win this game. But so can the Panthers. This is a game whoever wins this game may likely win the division since they are both 8-3. If the Panthers win, they will be 9-3, while the Saints will fall to 8-4. And as long as they don't let the Saints catch them in the tiebreaker, they'll figure it out later. There's no clear way. I think the winner of this game likely wins the division. And the South, look, the Falcons will be playing the Vikings today. They can beat the Vikings. It's in Atlanta. They too as well will be 8-4, which, look, that would be 4 straight wins for the Falcons. We weren't sure. They looked down. It seemed like their offense is really coming together. Julio Jones last week was just unstoppable. They are starting to come back. And look, this is a very top-heavy NFC. Very talented NFC. It's unbelievable. So, anyways, we'll talk about that when we wrap up the final spots. So, anyways, in the West, it's going to be the Rams. Their offense is great. One of the better offenses in the NFL. They are a very complete team. They can definitely be Super Bowl contenders. In the Rams, at 8-3, have beaten the Saints. So they would be the 3 seed, while the Saints would be the 4 seed. And whoever wins the Saints-Panthers game will be in the division lead. And if the Rams, assuming they win, beat the Cardinals today, so the Rams would be 8-4 or 9-3, while the Panthers or Saints would be 9-3, and by the way, they'd have the tiebreaker over the Saints. And looking at that, that's the way it may be. The Seahawks, they are still alive. They're 7-4, which if they were in the AFC, they'd be in easily. But being in the NFC, they lost to the Falcons, which gave the Falcons the tiebreaker. So if their record is tied at the end of the year, it's going to the Falcons. So that was a terrible loss. They lost to the Redskins. Earlier this year in Week 9, that was a bad loss. So look, the Seahawks are not as good, and their defense is banged up. Richard Sherman out for the year. Cam Chancellor out for the year. Earl Thomas is playing hurt right now, so he's probably not 100%. So looking at this, last year they were without Earl Thomas in the playoffs. That clearly showed. This year they are guaranteed to be without Sherman, guaranteed to be without Chancellor. Who knows if Wright or Wagner gets hurt again in football? Injuries can happen at any time. So that could be a question. The defense is not as good as it's been in years past. It's falling apart. They're playing the Eagles tonight, and assume they're probably going to lose. They're probably going to lose tonight to the Eagles. I really think the Eagles are just too good, and they don't have Chancellor or Sherman out there. They're significantly worse. The defense has not been healthy for a full playoffs in 2 years now, and look, I think the Seahawks window is starting to close. I don't think we'll ever again see the Seahawks that we saw 3, 4, 5 years ago. They're getting older. Their guys are no longer in their early to mid-20s anymore. They are now in their late 20s and starting to hit 30. And this looks like it's going to be the Rams division. Of course, things can change very quickly in the National Football League, but that's the way it looks right now. So, the playoff picture. So right now, the Eagles obviously number 1. Vikings number 2. So the 3 seed as of right now would be the LA Rams. 4 seed, Saints. The 5 seed would be the Panthers, who could easily jump to 4. They could flip-flop. The Falcons this year, 8-4, so they could be 6. And by the way, Falcons-Saints is next. This is going to be the Thursday night game this week. So looking at the Thursday night game, whoever wins that game could potentially win the division. Let's say they're both 8-4. Or the Falcons maybe they lose and they could be 7-6 or 9-4. I mean, we'll see. But huge game right there. And looking at this, what I see right now, the NFC is so good. I mean, so let's say the Falcons are a 6 seed. They can beat the Rams. They can beat the Rams. Just like we'll probably could have a Saints-Panthers rematch. And look, the Saints could beat the Panthers, and the Saints could then go on to beat the Vikings. Or the Vikings or the Falcons could beat the Eagles or something. This is so competitive. But as of right now, here's what I say. Let's just do that as of right now. We can make a lot of scenarios. It could be very different tomorrow, but as of right now, it's Saints, it's Falcons, Rams. The Rams can beat the Falcons, but let's just say the Rams win. They play against the Vikings once again, who clearly will own any tiebreaker over them since they beat them 2 weeks ago. Panthers, Saints, what we'll see later today will clearly show what these two teams are like and how they play. That could be a potential first round playoff preview. So you look at those games. Can either of these teams potentially beat the Eagles? Well, the Panthers lost to the Eagles back in week 6, so it's hard to say. But, in the AFC, as I said many times throughout this episode, in the AFC, it's the Steelers and the Patriots who are likely to play each other in the conference championship. And that's what all the talk seems to be going towards. Where here, let's just say the Falcons win. Let's just play some scenarios. The Falcons beat the Rams. Can they beat the Eagles? Probably not, but I wouldn't count them out. This is not certain. If the Falcons were to lose, if the Rams win, can they beat the Vikings? Maybe, but what we saw earlier, the same thing could happen again. And of course, things change. Things do change, but that game was in Minnesota, and the Vikings won. So, maybe You definitely get a second shot, but I don't know. And another scenario. Can the Panthers beat the Eagles? Again, it's hard to say, but the NFC is very top heavy. You know, we could have wild card teams. I think every team in this conference in the playoff picture, and you can't count out the Seahawks yet, has a chance to certainly go to the conference championship and maybe the Super Bowl. This is the strongest I've seen any league in as long as I can ever remember. This just seems so strong, so powerful. You know, the NFC is clearly much better than the AFC. So that could be interesting to see. So, as of right now, Super Bowl, I think it's Patriots and Eagles, but NFC is far from certain. Okay, so we've talked about the Steelers and the Rams and kind of the Ravens, and we talked about the playoff picture. So now we'll talk about the Giants, and it's two parts. So what do I think about Eli Manning? Well, the thing with Eli is we thought, okay, his line is terrible, so he's getting hit. He's 38-6, can never run. Clearly can't run now, so he's getting hit a lot. Odell Beckham is out for the year. Brandon Marshall's out for the year. Neither one of them have played in weeks and weeks. And Sterling Shepard is a good 3 receiver, an okay 2, borderline 2-3. And they're asking him to be the number 1 receiver, and the other guys they have, who are normally be 4 or 5 receivers, are all of a sudden into the rotation and playing, and they just don't have anywhere to go. They can't really run, and they're 2-9. And you know what the Giants decided to do? They bench Eli Manning. Which, look, he's been a legend year he started every year from when he took over for Kurt Warner in the 2004 season to when he became the full-time starter in 2005 and started 12 straight full seasons from 2005 through 2016. So that is, doing the math, almost 200 times, plus the end of the 2004 season, plus into this year, adds up to about 210. And they benched him. Now, I know the team's effective, but the fans want to see Eli. So they're going to start Geno Smith, who flamed out as the Jets quarterback. Well, I think this is just trying to try something new. I mean, you're 2-9. You're not going to make it to the playoffs. There's no way you are. I don't know why they're benching Eli. And later in the year, they could start Davis Webb, who's obviously very raw, put up huge numbers at Cal last year, as their 3rd-round pick, maybe as their quarterback of the future. Of course, I've seen mock draft reports of them drafting a quarterback, which seems likely, being one of the 3 worst teams in the league. Clearly, the Browns are worse. They may not win a game. Clearly, the Niners are worse, but the only Niners win this year is against the Giants. So the Giants, the team that lost to the 49ers, and Eli Manning, maybe let him ride out the year and start over next year. But look, he's been benched. I've heard reports. Archie Manning reported this, that potentially Eli could just retire after this year. So it's possible last week. That was the last time we ever saw Eli on the field, was last week. And will he play again? I don't know. It's hard to say. If he's not the quarterback this year, does not play anymore this year, and the Giants clearly don't want him, I think he could retire as a Giant. And finally, Ben McAdoo. So I've heard reports coming in from various sources that Ben McAdoo could be fired tomorrow morning. So the Giants are playing the Raiders today. And you're letting him coach this game. So what is your mindset as a coach? If you know, maybe I can do something to save the season. But you're coaching the team, and you know this is your last game coaching. You know you're not going to come back. What do? What game plan do you prepare? How do you do this? I mean, I really don't know. I have no idea what Ben McAdoo's game plan is for this week against the Raiders. I have no idea whatsoever. And you're starting Geno Smith, who is in his 5th year in the league, and I just don't know what McAdoo's doing, really. So going into the year with the Giants, and this is going to be related to Eli and Ben McAdoo, we thought, okay, they have a great defense. Their line's a problem, but they'll figure it out. They'll do something. It's going to be better. That's what their thinking was. And we thought, okay, and I picked them. And this is probably the worst Super Bowl preseason pick that I've ever made. I said this 2-9 team is going to win the Super Bowl. I said they were going to win the Super Bowl. Or not win the Super Bowl. I said they were going to make it to the Super Bowl. I thought they'd represent the NFC. And I was wrong. In fact, my pick in week 2 was starting to look bad. And I watched their first 2 games very closely, and I've seen the Giants some bits and pieces of them since. But really when they fell apart, I knew exactly why. I knew exactly what the problem was, so I haven't seen full Giants football. But you could tell early in the year, week 1 they're without Odell. They couldn't move the ball very well. I thought, okay, Odell's coming back week 2. I was ready for the game against the Lions. I thought they're going to win this game. I thought, okay, they lost the first game, no problem. And the same stuff happened. And Ben McAdoo, who is the play caller, since he did work with Aaron Rodgers in the past, was a great coordinator and a really good quarterbacks coach before, offensive-minded coach, was calling plays. And I did not like his play calling at all. And that was in week 2. That was in week 2 when I was watching every play very closely. And I heard the fans were not happy with him then, in week 2. And they were starting to be frustrated then. So that's when I first started thinking, you know what? He could be fired. He could be fired if this keeps up. He could be fired. And throughout the week, things kept happening. Multiple players, Rogers Cromartie and Janoris Jenkins at both times were benched, did not play. It seemed like they could have been checked out at times. And being outcoached against the San Francisco 49ers and all these incidents throughout the year, they just kept losing games over and over and over again. And really when they lost to the Eagles, I thought, wow, they almost beat the Eagles. But hey, at least their offense started to move. At least they're starting to move the ball. Right? They lost to the Buccaneers. Odell went down when they lost to the Chargers, an 0-4 team at the time, who now, talked about earlier, could very well win the AFC West. Amazing. Chargers definitely better than their record looks. But anyways, we're not talking about the Chargers. So anyways, then I started to realize stuff would happen. Odell went down. They had no offense. Their defense was worse. I feel like maybe the players just checked out. They thought, what is there to play for? We just need to get through this year and forget about this year. No one wants to remember this year. No one wants to play this year over again. And I started to think McAdoo was going to be fired. I knew he was going to be fired. I started to think about it in week 2. During that game, before they even lost, I was thinking about it. During that Monday night game, that McAdoo could be fired. Which, something that didn't even cross my mind at the beginning of the year. Especially after last year. And now, you're coaching this game, and you're going to get fired tomorrow, which is the reason why I've heard numerous reports. They're playing 3 out of their last 4 games at MetLife, and the fans obviously will not be happy. One, the guy who benched their quarterback, who brought them 2 Super Bowls, who I think is really slowed down, but other than that, the fans are going to be very unhappy. The last 3 games, either way. So, you're just going to fire McAdoo tomorrow. That's it. Will he get another coaching job? You know what? Here's what happened. Kind of had terrible luck, really. Injuries started to happen. He didn't have an offensive line. He had bad luck. We thought he was a potential Super Bowl coach. Maybe the next coach who wins the Super Bowl. Maybe the next solid NFL coach. And look, he could be fired. I mean, it is kind of bad luck. And look, coaches that lose a lot of games, many of them don't get another shot since they don't trust them. And look, they could turn it around and be good. Again, years later, for years to come after this year. But I feel like we're in win now mode to win a Super Bowl. And McAdoo gets fired. I don't know. Maybe you see Davis Webb or Geno Smith, and look, this is a 2-14 team. Maybe they get the third pick in the draft, since the Browns are 0-16 and the 49ers are 1-15. But just a disastrous season. And the season that looked so promising at the beginning of the year fell apart early. A lot of disappointment, a lot of injuries, and now the Giants fans may have seen the last of Eli Manning, and Ben McAdoo will be fired tomorrow, which, look, I'll definitely maybe say a few comments about it, but I really think he'll be fired tomorrow morning, and I will not be shocked at all if it happens tomorrow morning. And what if they fire him on January 1st? Well, I will not be surprised at all, but I thought that's a little long to wait, but we'll see. But Ben McAdoo out. Giants will be in search of a new coach. And, of course, many other teams will be in search of a new coach as well. But the Giants, definitely the first team. So, thank you for listening. We may try to record a few more times during the season. We may try to release a baseball podcast in the next few days, hopefully within the next week. But, listen, this baseball offseason has been very slow recently. Things I talked about. The Yankees, they just hired Aaron Boone yesterday. And Giancarlo Stanton, that's been going on for 3 weeks now. The Cardinals are trying to get him. He doesn't want to go to St. Louis, doesn't want to go to... he wants to go to the Dodgers, all that stuff, and really slowing things down. No moves have been made at all this offseason. So luckily the winter meetings are in a week from now. So hopefully the baseball really picks up. Hopefully so, since, look, two of the things I just said, I went on at length about 3 weeks ago doing the baseball podcast, and look, I don't know what's going on. So anyways, I hope to be on sometime in the next week. I'll try to report multiple times throughout the holidays, and luckily, the NFL playoffs are coming up. So I'll definitely try to podcast every week about that. So, closing on the podcast, the last words I want to say, the AFC looks pretty weak. You have two top-heavy teams likely to play for the spot in the Super Bowl, and everyone else seems like is just going to lose to them. And the NFC seems like any team can make it to the Super Bowl. So, really, very, very strong conference and a pretty weak conference. So, we'll see how that goes out the rest of the year. Thank you for listening.